In this Global Cities video series, I'm here with Tim McHugh, the CFO of Welltower, one of the US healthcare REITs. Tim has been with the company since 2016. So Tim, thanks very much for joining us. You're over here in London, so great to have you in our city.
That's right.
I know that your family are here on holiday as well, so you're working hard. They're having fun.
That's right.
I also sort of saw on your CV that you've been on the sell side, giving research notes to people like myself. You've then been on the buy side, sort of mirroring the job that I do today, and now you're on the corporate side. So
Correct.
Great kind of oversight, I guess, of all the sector in your career so far. So just in terms of kind of quick-fire questions for you, just to help people understand the Welltower business, could you just briefly summarize the Welltower business for us, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So Welltower, as you mentioned, is a healthcare REIT. So we're US-based, but we actually do business across US, Canada, and the UK. Got about 2,000 properties, and I would describe us as healthcare infrastructure. So what does that mean? It's the delivery of both healthcare and then wellness. And wellness is kind of almost two-pronged. One, I think it's an underlying trend generally in the population, and then wellness from taking care of the elderly and thinking about it from the type of healthcare that's delivered or care that's delivered to keep people out of hospitals and keep people more well. So we generally do that through residential settings. So 70% of our business is residential settings, and you should think about that as senior housing, and then some kind of more direct government reimbursed senior settings as well. And then in the US, we've got a large medical outpatient portfolio, which is, infrastructure built out directly for health systems and doctors to deliver care outside the hospital, which is a growing trend in the US, as I'm sure it is here as well, more efficient healthcare delivery, both closer to where you live and also in a less expensive setting from the hospital.
So just in terms of the demand for the type of real estate, is it as simple as aging demographic and sort of, people getting sicker?
There's a mathematical demand aspect of it, right? Which you don't have to stretch your mind too much to kind of capture. We all know the story of the aging demographic and the challenge it's going to pose for us, across all geographies that we're in. It's kind of similar of having the baby boom generation aging. So you've got, in the US, you have a next 20 years, 80 plus population growing at almost 4 times the general population. And then as you mentioned, getting sicker, the utilization of healthcare grows at a factor of 4 to 5 times after you go over the age of 65. So you've almost got these compounding factors of both higher utilization of healthcare and then this part of the population starting to balloon. I think the third factor that's a little less, mathematical, but certainly as I was talking to earlier, the wellness trends across the countries in which we own real estate are also very strong. So even outside of the aging population, the under 65 population, both the way they access healthcare, so going back to my comment on medical office buildings, wanting to be closer to home, more accessible, and more consumer-like, that's a trend. And then some of the housing that we own in the States particularly is getting into this kind of pre-care. So you think about retirement living, what we call age-restricted living. So 55 plus, you get into the stage of life before you're going into something that may require more care. And it's a product that's very much focused on wellness. So walking paths, a lot of greenery, bringing in healthcare, bringing in workout classes, things like that. So in addition to the aging demographic, you've also got this wellness trend that we're looking to continue to build infrastructure around.
And in terms of when you look at the whole Welltower business, what do you think is sort of the jewel in the crown? What's the most valuable part of that business?
I think it's data. And I think, we hear that a lot. And so I'm careful as to not sound like every other CEO in some ways. I won't say AI. I said it, but I won't say it constantly, as some CEOs have been quoted saying. But it's absolutely data. I mean, in our business, particularly with the population that kind of resides in our buildings, there's less known about them than the general population. There's a lot less use of electronics and internet in the way in which data is captured in a lot of the rest of the population. So I think data and how this population lives, but also how our businesses operate. So you think about the senior housing business itself, it's a very complex labor driven business, and our ability to sit and be scaled across a business and capture data is what's helping us start to create a more efficient model of care delivery. So on the senior housing side in particular, we have an ability to basically centralize a lot of that data collection And then the operators that work with us integrate into that, and they're able to feed off of that data to create an ever more efficient model. So it helps us both from a real estate perspective, and think about simply as Welltower, the real estate owner. It helps us from allocating capital. And that's been something that over the last 8 years, we've continued to build out our own data model on how we buy assets. And we'll get into that, I'm sure, a little later. But then what we've done over the last couple of years is what we call operationalizing that data. And so we start to use that from driving key insights from Welltower outward to our operators to allow them to run more efficient businesses. And in our business, as Tom, because you underwrite it from an investor seat, there's not a lot of great data, whereas a lot of other institutional real estate classes, there's a lot more out there that from your desktop, you can get a pretty good idea of what residential rents are. There's only a few labor inputs into the model. And so if you can get to almost 95% of what you need from underwriting investment from your desktop, the seniors business is much more complex than that. So having the data around that creates an edge for us, again, to both allocate capital and then for us to assist our operators in driving more efficient operating models.
And then looking out over the next 5 years or so, what is it that most excites you about the opportunity for Welltower?
So, I think about it, there's kind of two parts. One is the demographics, right? So you think about this business and, you mentioned at the top that I've got a background in securities. So I've been in and around the senior housing business and the healthcare business for almost 15 years from a research perspective, investment perspective, and now on the corporate side. And the theme has been constant. The baby boomers are aging, and this is going to create a demand wave. Sometimes there's, I think, a bit of fatigue from that narrative, right? And certainly there was in the 2010s, we had a lot of supply. The mathematics behind kind of demographic-driven demand is not something that's a secret to Welltower. So it's something amongst developers that became a main driver of supply coming before that demand came in, right? And the 2010s drove a lot of that. It's here. Right now we're talking about whether the actual kind of real acceleration happens later this decade, kind of 2026, 2027 in the States. But the incremental pickup in population growth has already started. So you're already seeing kind of almost 3% population growth in the 80 plus. And that's almost 3x what we're seeing in the general population. So that's the main excitement. But for Welltower, it's the ability to have an edge within that, right? So it's that we've been in this business for a long time. We've smartly allocated capital, and we're spending every day on the data side, creating a more and more efficient model. So it's not a passive investor within this kind of wave of demographics that certainly is going to kind of, rising tide is going to lift all boats, but it's us having a better model built within that it's a very attractive demographic backdrop to invest in. And then Welltower has, I think, has built our own model of investing that's going to have superior returns within that kind of demographic wave.
Yeah. And then sustainability, obviously kind of very sort of hot topic for many good reasons. How do you think about the challenge for Welltower and sort of what you're looking to try and achieve over the next few years, in that area?
Yeah, so sustainability, absolutely hot topic. And I think in the real estate space, we'll probably get into this a bit, but I think it's a particularly good spot for us to be all focused in, given the carbon footprint of real estate. But sustainability is a core part of kind of our strategy in driving the company forward. And the focus on data collection continues to be kind of the biggest challenge to that, right? And that's not to say I think we're in a very good spot with that, but it's a view that we can get that much better, getting more real-time data, being able to collect data on utilization of whether it's water, electricity, these types of things allow us to make scaled decisions across the platform. And that's where I think both the biggest challenge and opportunity lies in sustainability.
Yeah, thank you. And now just maybe for some slightly less serious questions.
Yes.
So who's the most famous person that you've met?
Ooh, that's a good question. I had the incredible opportunity to have dinner with Charlie Munger back in March of this year.
Actually, I saw that on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Yeah, you posted a picture,
Yes.
didn't you? Yeah.
So our CEO, Shank Mitra, is actually quite close with Charlie, and he hosted dinner at Charlie's house that I was able to attend.
There you go. That's pretty good.
It was unbelievable.
Very good. Who wins a fight between a lion and a tiger?
I'm biased towards the tiger. I've always been more of a tiger than a lion person, so I'd go with tiger.
Good. And then cheese or chocolate?
That's a great question. I almost feel like you could do both, but
You're not allowed to.
I go chocolate.
Okay. And then which is your favorite city?
So I think London is my favorite city, and I know I'm sitting here,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's an
Don't
easy
feel you have
answer.
to say that.
But that's an easy answer. But it is. It's. I had the pleasure of living here for 6 months in my first job out of college,
Yeah.
and it was an amazing experience. And the fact that we've got Welltower's got a footprint here allows me to come back and visit our team here.
Great. Well, look, thanks a lot for joining us today, and thanks for all the good work you do for Welltower.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me,
Enjoy
Tom.
the rest
I
of your
appreciate
trip in
it.
London.
Thank you.
Cheers.